And this is the regular meeting of the Municipal Council of the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal for the month of November, the date being November the 25th, 2019. And second item on the agenda is approval of the agenda, and I'll call on Deputy Mayor Deschamps.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hugh Cameron, that Municipal Council approves the agenda as presented.
Okay, thank you very much. Motion is on the table. Those in favor? Motion is carried. And item 3 on the agenda, disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Are there any disclosures here this evening?
None.
No disclosures. And item number 4 on the agenda is delegations and presentations. We have none this evening. We'll proceed directly to item number 5 on the agenda. And 5A is, by the way, this section is approval of previous council meetings. So 5A, the regular meeting of October the 28th, Councillor Hunter.
Moved myself, second by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, that the Municipal Council receives and approves the minutes of the regular meeting dated October 28, 2019.
Thank you very much. And are there any errors or omissions? And we'll deal with business arising at item number 6 of the agenda. So hearing no errors or omissions, to call the question. Those in favor? Motion is carried. And then the special council meeting of October 30th, Councillor Cameron.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's moved by myself, second by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, that Municipal Council receives and approves the minutes of the special meeting dated October 30th, 2019.
Thank you very much. Errors or omissions, if any? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. And then the public meeting for the rezoning of Ventnor Road, Councillor Hunter.
Moved myself, second by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, that the Municipal Council receives the minutes of the public meeting 1306 Ventnor Road, Dobie, dated November 11, 2019.
Thank you very much. Anyone note any errors or omissions? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Minutes are received as presented. And then item number 5B, the public meeting on the JRDR municipal drain, Councillor Dillabaugh.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Cameron, that the Municipality Council receives the minutes of the public meeting, JRDR Municipality Drain, dated November 18th, 2019.
Thank you very much. Any errors or omissions? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Now, proceed then directly to item number 6 on the agenda, which is business arising from any of those previous council meetings. There were 2. So, did anybody have any business arising? Okay, hearing none, I vote to go on to item number 7 on the agenda, which is the approval of various committee meetings held during the month. And 7A and B concerns the Public Library Board. Councillor Cameron.
Yes, once again, thank you very much. It's moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Deschamps that Municipal Council received the minutes of the Public Library Board meetings dated June 25th, 2019 and September 24th, 2019.
So we're approving 2 sets of minutes here. Discussion, if any. And I just have one thing to discuss very briefly. I noticed that in the first meeting of June the 25th, and I think it was caught by somebody, that the chair had been moving minutes, moving emotions. I don't know who caught that, but I see that it was corrected by the second meeting. I think we're going to allow the minutes of the first meeting to stand, are we? To the Deputy Clerk?
Through the chair, I did have a discussion with the CEO and the chair, and they are very aware and clear of the procedures now, and it will not be happening again.
Okay, now the second thing is, do we know who is the secretary of the library board that prepares these minutes?
Through the chair, it looks like it kind of rotates on the day unless Councillor Cameron has any other.
Yes, I'll fill you in. At the moment, for the most part, it's Judy Cameron, no relation to me, but Judy Cameron is the official secretary. She is away for the winter. However, she does appear by remote computer and attends all our meetings. And in her absence, Pat Tierney is the acting secretary.
Okay, so a couple of things arise from that. I'm not so sure that our procedural bylaws allow attendance by video. Can you enlighten me on that aspect of things?
Through the chair, ours does not. However, it depends on what the library board's procedures state. They may have approved that.
Okay, does it show in their procedural bylaw?
I don't have a copy of that, unfortunately.
May I, through the chair, I believe it does. We have gone over it, and I'm sure that it's above board.
I see there's a little conversation going on there. Does it help the discussion any?
At this point, no, we were just confirming that neither of us have received the new updated one.
Okay, so the second part of my question is, and I don't know who prepared these two sets of minutes, but have you had an opportunity to spend any time with whoever it was that prepared these minutes to kind of get them more shaped to the format of what we're used to at municipal council?
Again, through the chair, I was not aware of who was actually preparing the minutes before Councillor Cameron informed us.
All right, well, I'm gonna call the question on these minutes.
Just one comment, Mr. Mayor. We're having a library board tomorrow evening. I will discuss that with the entire board, try and get some answers to your pertaining questions. And I will mention that maybe a format could be changed, and perhaps the CAO of the library could work with staff to come up with a format.
Yes,
That would be acceptable?
Yeah, I'd like one point of clarification, if the staff would just get back to you before that meeting tomorrow night, and I'll tell you what it is. My understanding was that all of the boards and committees that are appointed by council must conform to the council's procedural bylaws. I thought that I remembered that, but perhaps I've remembered it wrong, and so if someone could kind of research that. And then depending on how that research pans out, I think the important thing is that the clerk and the deputy clerk have copies of the library procedural bylaw so that we understand that appearance by video link is a permitted practice. I'd just like to get that aspect of things clarified. So, no further questions. Anybody else have any comments about these minutes? Hearing none, about to call the questions on the two sets of minutes in front of us. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried, thank you. And I'm moving on then to the Port Management Committee of October 23rd. Deputy Mayor Deschamps.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hugh Cameron, that Municipal Council receives the minutes of the Port Management Committee meeting dated October 23rd, 2019.
Thank you very much. Errors or omissions? Comments, discussion? Hearing none. Vote to call the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. And then 7B, the Special Committee of Admin Finance, Councillor Hunter.
Move myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, that the municipal council receives and approves the minutes of the Committee of the Whole Administration and Finance meeting dated October 30th, 2019.
And in fact, this was a special meeting of council, if I recall correctly. Is there any discussion here? Hearing none, I'm about to call the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried, thank you. And 7E, the Community Development Committee, Deputy Mayor Deschamps.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Hugh Cameron, the municipal council receives and approves the minutes of the Community Development Committee meeting dated November 4th, 2019.
Thank you very much. Discussion, if any? Business arising? Hearing nothing. Those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. And the Committee of the Whole, Administration and Finance, November the 11th, Councilor Dillabaugh.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Cameron, that the municipal council receives and approves the minutes of the Committee of the Whole Administration Finance meeting dated November 11th, 2019.
Thank you very much. The motion is on the table. Discussion, if any? Hearing none. Those in favor? Motion is carried. And 7G, Committee of the Whole, Public Works, Councilor Cameron.
Yes, thank you very much. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, that municipal council receives and approves the minutes of the Committee of the Whole, Public Works, Environmental Services and Facilities meeting dated November 18th, 2019.
Thank you very much. Motion is on the floor. Discussion, if any? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Thank you. And proceeding now to item 8 on the agenda. And item 8 on the agenda is a number of action and information items coming forward as recommendation from the committees during the past month. And so the first is 9A, Councilor Dillabaugh.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Cameron, that the municipal council recommends in favor of the severance B 89-19 and B 90-19 Norton, as recommended by the Community Development Committee.
Thank you very much. The motion is on the floor for the Norton severances. Discussion, if any? Hearing none. Those in favor? Motion is carried. I see Mr. Norton has just joined us. He'll be pleased to know that that recommendation is going forward. And item 8B, severance application for Chown, Councilor Dillabaugh.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Cameron, that the municipality council recommends in favor of the severance B 91-19 Chown with the following conditions: that the environmental impact assessment be completed that demonstrates to the satisfaction of the township, and that there be no negative impact on the nature features of the ecology functions in the area, and that the separate retained parcels have a lot frontage of 70 meters, or a minor variance be granted to allow for this efficiency, as recommended by the Community Development Committee.
Thank you very much. The motion is on the floor. Discussion, if any? Hearing none. Those in favor? Motion is carried. And 8C, the severance application Longwood, Deputy Mayor Deschamps.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Hugh Cameron, that municipal council recommend in favor of severance B 92-19 Lockwood, as recommended by the Community Development Committee.
Thank you very much. Discussion, if any? Hearing none. Those in favor? Motion is carried. And item 8D, the 2020 raw water supply system budget. Deputy Mayor Deschamps.
Sorry. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Hugh Cameron, that municipal council approves the 2020 raw water supply system budget as attached, as recommended by the Committee of the Whole, Public Works, Environmental Services, and Facilities.
Thank you very much. The motion is on the floor. Good discussion at the committee level. Discussion, if any. Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Thank you. And number 8E, the SCADA system upgrade. at the Cardinal Wastewater Treatment Plant. Councillor Cameron.
Yes, thank you again. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Dillabaugh that Municipal Council, 1, award the SCADA upgrade to Schneider Electric at a cost of $122,100, excluding non-rebatable HST. And 2, authorize staff to execute and the required contract documents. And 3, approve a 5%, in bracket, $6,105, contingency to be used at the discretion of the Director of Operations should any unforeseen issues arise during the project, as recommended by the Committee of the Whole, Public Works, Environmental Services, and Facilities.
Thank you very much. Discussion, if any? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. And now I'm going to item 8F concerning dispensable sewer lateral. Councillor Hunter.
Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, that the Municipal Council, 1, authorize the purchase of land and dispensable in accordance with the November 18, 2019 Committee of the Whole closed session discussion. And 2, authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the necessary documents as recommended by Committee of the Whole, Public Works, Environmental Services, and Facilities.
Thank you very much. Motion is on the floor. Discussion, if any? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. And now I'm turning to 8G, the Council Code of Conduct. Deputy Mayor Deschamps.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter, that Municipal Council adopt the Code of Conduct, the Council Code of Conduct, excuse me, with the recommended rewording in section 5.2.
Thank you very much. Now, I just wanted to thank the staff for the slight adjustment in the wording at 5.2. Any further discussion on this motion? Any further discussion on the Council Code of Conduct? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Thank you. And I'm turning now to 8H, which is the 2019 Emergency Management Plan. Deputy Mayor Deschamps.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter, that Municipal Council receives the 2019 Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal Emergency Management Plan.
Okay, now, discussion if any? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so just a question quickly to staff. So we've now approved the 2019 Emergency Management Plan, which has been our sort of guiding document during the year. So I'm assuming that with the work that we've done on this plan, that the 2020 Emergency Management Plan will be pretty congruent to this one. Am I correct in that assumption? Just since we're kind of late in the year approving this one.
So, Mr. Mayor, yes, I would say that in 2020, we will probably be having the review of the emergency plan earlier on in the year.
Okay, thank you very much. And so I'm now at item number 9 on the agenda, which is receipt of the various correspondence packages, and I think I'm turning to Councillor Hunter.
Myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, that the Municipal Council receives the correspondence listings for the following dates as previously circulated: November 1st, 2019, November 7th, 2019, November 14th, 2019, November 21st, 2019.
Thank you very much. So those correspondence packages have been circulated. Everybody's had an opportunity to review them and bring forth any items coming from those packages. Further discussion, if any? Hearing none, I'm about to call the question. Those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. And on item number 10 of the agenda, which is approval of the municipal disbursements, Councillor Dillabaugh.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Cameron, that the municipality council approves the payment of the municipal invoices circulating dated as follows. Reported dated November 1st, 2019, 219-00227 in the amount of $273,177.50. Reported date November 12th, 2019, 2019-00235 in the amount of $1,194.04. Reported date November 20th, 2019, 2019-00245 for the amount of $263,281.06. Reported dated November 21st, 2019, 2010-00246 in the amount of $547,836.54 for a total of $1,085,489.14.
So thank you very much. The disbursement sheets have been circulated, and everybody has had an opportunity to review the disbursement sheets. They're now public documents. Are there any questions arising? Hearing none, about to call the question. Those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. And I'm going now to item number 11 on the agenda, which are the various bylaws that are coming forward as a result of discussions at the committee meetings. And the first bylaw, 11A, Councillor Cameron.
Yes, thank you very much. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Dillabaugh that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to prescribe a tariff of fees for the processing of applications made in respect of planning matters. And this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
Thank you very much. Now, is there any discussion here? Hearing none, I'm going to call the question on first and second reading. Those in favor?
Aye.
The motion is carried unanimously. Can proceed to third reading.
Yes, thank you again. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Dillabaugh that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to amend bylaw 2009-53 to provide for a drainage works in the township of Edwardsburg Cardinal, the James Raleigh.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. It should be the third reading of the previous bylaw.
Sorry,
Tariff for fees for the processing of applications.
they got mixed up, I'm sorry.
No problem.
Once again, it's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dillabaugh, that a bylaw to prescribe a tariff for fees for the processing of applications made in respect to of planning matters be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2019-75.
Thank you very much. Discussion, if any? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Just by way of explanation, the planning department is expected to be self-supporting, and council is adjusting some of the fees for official plan amendments, zoning bylaw amendments, draft plans of subdivision, committee of adjustment applications, etc. They haven't been adjusted in some period of time, and at this point in time, the planning department is not quite recovering all of its costs. So we want to set it up for next year so that that will happen. And now on 11B, the community grants and donations policy bylaw. Deputy Mayor Deschamps.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to adopt a grants and donations policy. And this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
Thank you very much. The policy's been reviewed at the committee level. Discussion, if any? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried unanimously. The bylaw can proceed to third reading.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter, that a bylaw to adopt a grants and donations policy be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2019-76.
Thank you very much. And just before I call the question on third reading, I want to acknowledge the work of the staff in revising the policy, tightening it up a little bit, and we'll be using the new bylaw effective with the 2020 budget. So thank you very much to the staff. Further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of third reading? Motion is carried, thank you. And item number 11C, the council code of conduct policy bylaw. Councillor Hunter.
Move myself, second by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to adopt a code of conduct for the council of the Township of Edgeworth Cardinal. This shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
Thank you very much. Discussion, if any? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried unanimously. The bylaw can proceed to third reading.
Move myself, second by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, that a bylaw to adopt a code of conduct for the council of the Township of Edgeworth Cardinal be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2019-77.
Sorry, John.
Thank you very much. Those in favor? Motion is carried. And just a question to staff. This was the final then adoption for the code of conduct for the members of council of the township. And I understand that there will be a sort of a parallel bylaw for employees. Is that correct? And we have one in place that's being reworked, and it'll come forward as well. Thank you very much.
That's correct.
Item number 11D is setting rates for the 2020 Spencerville wastewater rates. Councillor Hunter.
Move myself, second by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to adopt the estimates and impose sewer rates for the use of the Spencerville sewer system. And this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
Thank you very much. Discussion, if any? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried, and it's carried unanimously. The bylaw can proceed to third reading.
Move myself, second by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, that a bylaw to adopt the estimates and impose sewer rates for the users of the Spencerville sewer system be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2019-78.
Thank you very much. And those in favor of third reading? This will set the rates for the Spencerville sewer system for the 2020 calendar year. And if I recall correctly, it's a 1% increase, and 1% increase amounts to $15 a year, I think it was, if I recall.
$7.
$7 a year? And the objective here is to try to increase the reserves in the Spencerville wastewater reserve account. Okay, thank you very much. And so now I'm proceeding to the SCADA upgrade to the Cardinal wastewater treatment plant. Councillor oh no, I'm sorry, I'm lost, I'm found again. 11E, the Cardinal water and wastewater rates. Councillor Dillabaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Council Cameron, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to amend the bylaw 2013-69 to impose water and wastewater rates for users in the Cardinal water and wastewater system, and this shall constitute first, second reading thereof.
Thank you very much. Discussion, if any? Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. The bylaw can proceed to third reading.
Moved by myself, seconded by Council Cameron, that the bylaw be amended bylaw 2013-69 to impose water and wastewater rates for the users of the Cardinal water wastewater system be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2019-79.
Discussion, if any? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. The bylaw gets third reading. And just in the interest of transparency and openness, I just ask the staff to help me out here. If I recall correctly, the Cardinal water rates will go up by 2%, and the base, that's 2% on the base rate, and perhaps you can help me with that amount. What is the amount?
Mr. Mayor, I believe that is around $7, if I'm not mistaken, or the 2% increase on the water.
6, I think, 6 or 7.
$6?
Per household?
Yes,
Okay,
per year,
Per year.
per annum.
per annum. And then on the wastewater, the rate was gonna be increasing by 5%, and the dollar amount associated with 5% on the base rate
It was 15.
was 15. And again, council has a very close eye on these two systems, which by law must be self-supporting by the users. And council is quite concerned that the reserve accounts balances be increased, because we know that in the not too distant future, we will have a major construction project to replace the aging sewer and water infrastructure along County Road 2, on the north side of County Road 2, from Shanley Road down as far as Sawmill Creek. And while we will make a determined third or fourth effort to receive grants for that $2 million project in the next round of, I believe it's called infrastructure funding, we do know that if this round is not successful, that we will eventually have to bear the cost. The users actually will have to bear the cost of this construction upgrade solely on their own shoulders, and we don't want to hit them with a large construction, capital construction cost assessment in one bite, and we prefer to increase those reserve accounts slowly in preparation for the work that has to be done. So thank you very much. The bylaw is passed. The new rates will go into effect on the 1st of January. And now I'm at 11F, which is an amendment to bylaw 2012-35. Councillor Hunter.
Move myself, second by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to amend bylaw 2012-35 as amended, 1306 Ventnor Road, Dobie, and this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
The end of a rather long and complicated process. I'm going to call for approval of first and second reading. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried unanimously. The bylaw can proceed to third reading.
Move myself, second by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, that a bylaw to amend bylaw 2012-35 as amended, 1306 Ventnor Road, Dobie, be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2019-80.
Those in favor? Motion is carried. Bylaw is now in effect. And again, before proceeding, I just want to acknowledge the work of staff on this particular project, and it certainly was a project. And I know our former CAO had her fingers in it up to her eyeballs, and luckily we were able to get this on a very professional level between our planners and their planners. But even with that help, it was a very complicated process, probably one of the most complicated planning processes that I've seen in quite a number of years on municipal council. So full credit to the staff for leading us and getting us through that process. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to item number 11G, which is the adoption of the official plan, first and second reading only. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's getting full three readings?
Please.
I know that I just gave the clerk a heart attack.
Yes, you did.
Or reason for a heart attack.
Oh, well, she wanted to do it all over again.
So Deputy Mayor Deschamps, first and second reading, please.
Moved excitedly by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to adopt the official plan for the corporation of the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal, and this shall constitute the first and second reading thereof.
Okay, first and second reading on the official plan. Those in favor? Okay, so that's approved unanimously, and it can proceed to the bylaw can proceed to third reading. That's Deputy Mayor.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter, that a bylaw to adopt the official plan for the corporation of the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2019-81.
Those in favor? Motion is carried. And so the clerk can breathe a sigh of relief. But just to inform council, and I'm glad that it passed unanimously, and it's going to the next stage now, which will be county approval of the official plan. But I'm still very interested in the fact that we will probably require an amendment to that official plan for the Cedar Grove Road Job Site Challenge. And we will probably be looking for an amendment to designate that area as a provincially significant employment area. But this gets the process underway, and then we'll come back to an amendment if things develop the way we expect they may. So I'm going to 11H, which is an amendment to bylaw 2009-53. Councillor Cameron.
Yes, thank you again. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dillabaugh, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to amend bylaw 2009-53 to provide for a drainage works in the township of Edwardsburg Cardinal, the James Riley DeWitt Richter Municipal Drain, and this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
Thank you very much. Discussion, if any? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Carried unanimously. The bylaw can proceed to third reading.
No.
No.
Oh no, first and second only on this one. So just by way of explanation, we're doing a, what is it called, a section 34 amendment to the original drainage plan as ordered by the office of the drainage referee. And we've held the public meeting, everything is in place, and now the bylaw remains at first and second reading until the process is complete with a series of public meetings, if I recall correctly.
So just to clarify, Mayor, it is section 78.
Section 78
Of the Drainage Act, and at this point, with first and second reading being complete, we will look in the next 30 days to set a date for the court of revision and go through the court of revision process, and if there are any appeals. If there are no appeals, then once that appeal period is complete, then it'll come back for third reading.
And I appreciate your efforts at keeping me educated on this rather complicated matter.
It is quite a little process.
It is, and very, very interesting as well. All right, so I'm proceeding now to item 12 on the agenda, which is the CAO's administrative update. Councillor Dillabaugh, would you put the motion on the floor? Then we'll ask the CAO to highlight his administrative update.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Cameron that the municipality council receive the CEO's administration report as presented.
Now, to the CAO, if you'd like to highlight your report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This first item, I'm pleased to report that Gord Shaw has taken over as Director of Operations, and Eric Weirman has filled the role of Chief Water Sewer Operator.
Congratulations to both before you go on.
Signage, I am pleased to report that the kiosk signs are up, and the sign at the Cardinal Bridge abutment has been replaced. We still have lighting to do at that sign, and we're still finalizing some options we're looking into, solar lighting.
And can I just mention that we have had several requests that lighting be pointed downward. We've had that request from a number of observatories in the area.
We always like to shine the light upwards, but we'll take that under advisement. With respect to the upcoming meeting schedule, I wanted to highlight Monday, January 6th as a special committee of the whole meeting, Admin and Finance, for receiving the Service Delivery Review Report, which WSCS Consulting should be here to present. On page 2, under Treasury, audit, the auditors are expected to be in December 11th to 13th to start the interim audit. And also with budget, staff has been working hard to getting the first draft of the 2020 budget ready, and the treasurer will be presenting her PowerPoint and high-level overview at December 2nd, and we should have that first draft ready to present on December 2nd. With respect to facilities and recreation, under human resources again, we're pleased that Jeff Hopkins has returned to work as of Monday, November 18th. So we welcome him back. South Ed Center, the Y on the Fly is well underway, and there's been a good turnout for the program on Friday mornings. Waterfront Revitalization Ad Hoc Committee. It appears that we have a public information session that is scheduled for December 16th, 6:30 to 8:30 at the Legion in Cardinal. We were planning this to be a drop-in public information session. With respect to operations, Public Works, hopefully everybody was able to take a look at the new plow that we've added to the fleet. And it did participate in the Light Up the Night parade in Prescott. Asphalt patching is complete for the season.
Just before you go on, there were 2 spots on Gooden Road, I think. Were they patched?
Yes, they were on schedule to be patched. Also pleased to report that the no parking signs on County Road 21 were installed on Friday. Walker Street, the remedial topsoil and reseeding work has been reviewed by the engineer and determined to be satisfactory before the snowfall hit.
Thank goodness. Is that behind us?
That should be behind us.
Has the holdback been released?
Not as of yet.
Okay.
And I've heard no complaints.
And no complaints?
So far.
Under operations, so the Spencerville wastewater system, ministry inspection was conducted on November 5th. With respect to Cardinal wastewater, staff has replaced the seal on one of the disc flow circulating transfer pumps. And we did reach a window where Dundee Marine was able to come in and inspect the intake structures at the water plant and at the raw water supply system. Unfortunately, that had been delayed due to the high volume outputs through. With the fire department, we have the potential for 5 recruits to begin in January. Also, the fire chief's been working hard at updating the dispatch response settings, and they're being tested out right now in a simulator unit at Brockville Fire Dispatch. Hopefully early in 2020 they will go live. Also under emergency management, just to let you know that Ontario is testing the Alert Ready system on November 27th. So this typically occurs twice a year in May and November.
And what do we expect from that test?
Well, you should, for the majority, should receive an alert on your cell.
Okay, now does that go all across the cell phone network? So everybody gets that alert?
Not everyone will receive it, depending on the network that they're on.
Okay, but it is a provincial-wide test?
It is a Canadian-wide test.
Canadian-wide?
Yes.
Okay, so that takes Mr. Grant to the end of his highlights. Now, are there questions through the chair to Mr. Grant? Councillor Cameron.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. Just a correction on page 1. Wednesday, December 20th, port management meeting. I believe that date should be the 18th.
Thank you for that correction.
And on December 3rd and 4th, you have made the correction on the second page, I believe. which,
Yes.
regarding the meeting at the Legion. Thank you for that.
So that December 3rd or 4th, that becomes December 16th, right?
That does become December 16th.
Okay. Further questions of Mr. Grant? Councillor Hunter?
I just have one question. I've been asked by residents, how come all of a sudden counties have extended the 50-kilometer speed limit on 21 all the way up to the hardware store? Were we given any notification of that being changed, or?
I think I should probably answer that. I think that was done in conjunction with the no parking on the north side. And there was several complaints that went directly to county. Now, if I did not report that at this meeting, then I'm at fault there, but I thought that I had, because I was aware that that would be extended out. So my apologies if I
I
didn't.
could have missed it, but I just,
Well, and
residents asked me why it was in there, and I told them I thought it was probably due to our traffic count there, that we had some very high speeders
Yeah.
coming in there, that they were kind of wondering why it was back so far up, so that they went kind of, they thought maybe they'd stop partway up would have been.
I know that the director
And I said
reviewed
that-
this situation from an operational point of view, and that was his recommendation to county council. My apologies.
No, I could have missed it. No.
I have a question, or I just want to highlight one thing that the director, or that the CAO didn't highlight, and that's on page 3 of 4. And on page 3 or 4, under Operations Environmental Services, I want to point out to council, last item, last box in that item, Prescott Wastewater Treatment Plant. Now, our agreement with Prescott clearly requires that we have 3 meetings, I think it's a minimum of 3 meetings a year, to review operations and budgets concerning the Prescott Wastewater Treatment Plant. As you know, we purchased, by actually writing a check and cash flowing a check to Prescott, we purchased a percentage of the capacity of that plant. And we asked that the Joint Management Board be activated, or I should say reactivated. And the board has been activated. I'm the appointee on the board. Prescott has 4. I think, if I recall correctly, there's been 1 meeting in 2019. The treasurer, the CEO, or the clerk can correct me. Has there actually been 2 meetings in 2019, or just the 1?
There haven't been any.
Haven't been any in 2019. And then one of the requirements of the agreement that we have with Prescott is that there be a specific September meeting for the specific purpose of approving the wastewater treatment plant budget for the upcoming year. And that meeting has not occurred. Now the question is, how do we deal with the fact that Prescott, who's clearly identified as the managing partner of that system, has not exercised their responsibility to call those meetings in spite of numerous staff-to-staff requests to do so. Now, from a political point of view, I have not addressed the issue politically, and the staff and I are discussing a strategy with which to deal with this, and we'll be moving forward to deal with this outstanding issue sometime between now and the middle of December. That does not to say that a meeting will take place, but we will be dealing with the fact that the meetings have not been mounted, the agendas have not been created, the budgets have not been shared. So I'm just pointing that out. And it's quite obvious at this point that a political response is required. And to the CAO then?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, we have received a draft budget and our percentage of use year to date. We did just receive that.
Okay. But no sign of a meeting?
No sign of a meeting.
Okay, well, the agreement clearly calls that the budget be approved at the committee level.
That is correct, in September.
Okay, all right, and so I have the motion on the floor to receive the CAO's administrative report as presented. Those in favor? Motion is carried, thank you. And now I'm at item number 13 on the agenda, which is council inquiries or notices of motion. Hearing none.
Hold on, I just have a couple words that I want to say.
Okay, go ahead.
I think maybe Councilor Laval wanted to go.
We go first.
I just wrote something really quick. It's not really an inquiry, it's not really a notice of motion, it's just a couple of words. I'd like to take a quick moment to pat out my fellow councillors and our staff on the backs. It was announced last week that the IJC will be deviating slightly away from Plan 2014 and the guidelines of that plan to address the devastating flooding on the St. Lawrence River in Lake Ontario. The hope is that this will reduce the damage that will be caused this coming spring. It is understood that this will not eliminate flooding, but the hope is it will reduce it. The management plan may come with some cost to shipping industry and commerce. Unfortunately, to salvage the shoreline and people's homes and property, shipping may have to cease for a period of time outside the normal closure periods of the seaway system. This may be necessary action, and time will only tell. As you may recall, in June, I wrote a letter regarding high water levels. Our great staff then converted the intentions of that letter into a resolution. I presented that resolution here to council for your consideration, and you, my fellow councillors, unanimously passed that resolution. Since then, many other municipalities have used that resolution and passed the same or very similar resolutions regarding flooding in Plan 2014. While no one will give this council credit for being the very first municipal government to pass a resolution to rescind Plan 2014, today I want to take the time to thank you, our mayor, our fellow councillors, the staff that helped as well, many other mayors, councils, MPPs and MPs, and private citizens that continue to hold the IJC to a court for the effects of Plan 2014. And while it is understood that climate change may be part of this problem, it's not climate change alone It is understood that climate change may be part of the problem, but climate change alone isn't the cause of the devastation, and the IJC must remain accountable for Plan 2014. Let us not forget that this council got the ball rolling on this matter, and what seems to be the norm, Edwardsburg Cardinal is leading the way yet again for others to follow. Thank you.
Councilor Dilwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple things. First of all, I was at my first economic summit Friday with Leeds and Grenville. I found it very well organized. I found that I left there with a lot of good information, and I left there with a very positive attitude towards the future of the Edwardsburg Cardinal going forward. So I would like you, Mr. Mayor, as our warden, to thank the staff at the Economical Committee for a job well done. I enjoyed it very much.
That was done earlier today, but I'll certainly pass it on at the next meeting as well.
Thank you. Second of all, I was, this is to the horn of a club here in Spencerville. I was out Saturday going to buy some goodies at the craft show here at the Drummond Building, and on the way home I saw the Optimist Club getting ready with their, putting in their rink for this winter. I stopped, I helped, not a lot, believe me boys, I did a couple things for about 10 minutes and ran out of breath, and that was it for me. But in saying that, they had their first annual charity dinner on October 5th, and they wanted me to pass it on that they netted $30,800 that will be left in this local community. So I would like to congratulate those people on a job well done. Thank you.
Now, are there any other council inquiries or notices of motion? If not, I'm going to proceed to the mayor's report. And the mayor's got several things to report, and I hope I don't run too much afoul of the deputy mayor. We'll see,
That's okay.
because I'm gonna talk about the water levels too.
I figured you would be.
So, first of all, I want to just talk just briefly about the Ontario Job Site Challenge and what we learned at the Economic Development Summit, that applications would be received up until March 31st, 2020. So we have roughly 4 months to sharpen up the original proposal that we already submitted. And I think the good thing that we learned at the Economic Development Summit was that it is not necessary that we own the land that we are putting forward. So that's a big relief in my mind. We are basically just being proponents of that location, and I hope that council will join with me in putting that site forward to the Ontario Job Site Challenge. As you know, they're looking for what they're calling mega sites of 500 to 1,500 acres, where the province hopes to establish the next major manufacturing industry campus. And as it was said to me at the Economic Development Summit, think about it for a minute. What other site in Ontario has access to 2 4-lane highways, Montreal, Toronto, and Ottawa, at the junction of an interchange, Montreal, Toronto, and Ottawa, access to CN, close access to CN Rail, close access to a bridge to the USA, close access to the Seaway Deepwater Port, and a number of other attributes that can go well documented in our application. So I'm very excited to hear about this new program. And one thing I do want to say is that I can tell from the way the new program is outlined that they learned a lot from our initial presentation and our initial nomination of the Cedar Grove Road site. I can see places in the new program that have taken a problem which we identified in the initial application, and they found a way to address each one of those problems, not the least of which is the fact that we don't own the land that we're proposing. Now, along that same line, Infrastructure Ontario was today supposed to have notified the township that they're seeking municipal expressions of interest for the divestiture of the Edwardsburg Land Bank. And so to the staff, did we actually get a notice from Infrastructure Ontario today?
No, sir.
No, well, that's typical.
Everybody's notice generally a month behind.
Well, I'm quite confident in talking to our contact that we will in the next day or so receive a formal letter from Infrastructure Ontario asking us to identify our interests. And they know without a shadow of a doubt that we have 2 interests. One is the interest of those farmers that have been leasing that land over a period of years, and their good stewardship of the land has kept it arable and productive. And we would hope that someplace in the process, those leaseholders would have a favorable input, if I can put it that way. The second interest that we have, of course, is the 1,500 acres on the Cedar Grove Road site. And I've been told that when we express our interest in that site, it's sufficient to say that although we don't own it, we do intend to nominate it to the Ontario Job Site Challenge program, and that will be sufficient notice to Infrastructure Ontario that we have an interest, even though we don't have the dollars to buy it. All right, next item is the 730 truck stop, and I just want to say that staff here have done everything that they can. We've reviewed their application for a building permit, and we have actually prepared the building permit, but we're not allowed to issue the building permit until the owners of the site have received a permit from the MTO to go ahead. It turns out that because the site itself is located within a certain distance of a 401 or a 400 series highway interchange, that MTO gets involved in the process. And so the proponent is now working his way through that process, and we're providing some political support as best we can, but some things have to be done by the proponent as well. We're assisting in whatever way we can. Next thing I want to report just quickly, and I mentioned it at the last mayor's report, that we had been asked by Cogeco to supply letters of support for their broadband project. Now, in the interim period of time between the time that we first met with them and now, we've spent a fair amount of time doing our due diligence to assure ourselves that by signing those letters, we're not in any way jeopardizing the EORN cell phone project. That is the project to close the cell phone gaps. Now, that project is proceeding along. The provincial government and the federal government have both made their commitments, and the EORN staff is preparing the contribution agreement, and at the same time that they're preparing the contribution agreement, they're about to go out for expressions of interest or RFQs to determine what the private industry, Bell, Rogers, Cogeco, might do to help with the improvement in the cell gap coverage. The other major project that EORN is involved in, of course, is bringing broadband to the CRTC standard all across Eastern Ontario. And that's download speeds of 50 megabytes per minute and upload speeds of 10 megabytes per minute. So we straightened out the issue as it pertains to EORN, and they have no problem with us supporting the Cogeco project, which is a different kind of project which involves high-speed internet at the home or at the point of business. A very robust project that's slowly being rolled out by the CRTC with a particular emphasis, it appears, on Eastern Ontario. And the CRTC is looking for expressions of interest from private industry to get this done. Cogeco has already responded to at least 5 of those expressions of interest in other geographic areas of the province. They've won 3 of the 5 that they've responded to, and they will be doing the work in those geographic areas. Now, the person that we've been talking to at Cogeco is looking for our support. EORN has no objections to us providing support for broadband, and the broadband contact that we've been working with has no requirement that by signing this letter we're giving Cogeco an exclusive of any sort. As a matter of fact, as he said to me today, Pat, I'm ahead of the game. I'm trying to get my letters of support in early. We don't have to make our final applications until March the 31st. I want to have all my paperwork in order now, but you will definitely be approached by Bell and Rogers, who will also be seeking expressions of support, and I would urge you to support their applications as well. We know that Cogeco cannot win all of these contracts, but we also know that it's in the interest of your residents and your taxpayers to have improved high-speed internet via broadband capability at the home and at the business. So today I have signed the letter that will be going to Cogeco, and when Bell and Rogers come forward looking for support, we will be prepared to give them support as well. We understand now how the project works and how it's not going to be detrimental to the EORN current project. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about is the topic that the Deputy Mayor brought up, and he was much better prepared than I was, because I just got off the phone just prior to coming to this meeting with the Secretary of the Lake Ontario St. Lawrence River Board. And the first thing I want to make absolutely and abundantly clear is that the IJC has relieved the Lake Ontario St. Lawrence River Board of adherence to the Plan 2014 on May the 7th. And the IJC has not looked back, nor has the Lake Ontario St. Lawrence River Board looked back. They have not, since May the 7th, given any attention, adherence, or compliance to Plan 2014. They have been working at their very best to flow the maximum amounts of water possible through the Moses Saunders Dam, taking into account a whole variety of problems and opportunities and challenges that they're faced with. Not the least of which is that as Lake Ontario reduces, the flow in the river reduces. And as the flow in the river reduces, the amount of water that they can put through the dam also reduces. Now, they were at 10,400 cubic meters per second for, I think, 179 days. And then it got to the point where they could no longer flow that amount through the dam without completely or mostly drying up Lake St. Lawrence. Now, the problem is that they can't get enough water into Lake St. Lawrence fast enough. The Iroquois Dam is not an hindrance. The gates are wide open. Even the lock gates are open most of the time, except for periods of time when the velocity of the stream is so strong that it's a hindrance to shipping. The problem that they have at Lake St. Lawrence is that if they lower the water levels too low, it will be lower than the inverts on the water treatment plants at Morrisburg, Ingleside, and a couple of U.S. cities on the south side of the river. Now I see we have our new Chief of Environmental Services here. And so through the CAO, if I may, I'm going to ask a question, and my apologies for not giving him an opportunity to think about this ahead of time. But do we know the invert of our water intake point?
Obviously, it would vary through the season. The water levels have decreased quite significantly from the highs we had in the spring. But I believe it's about 20 feet of water that the invert from the intake would be in.
Yes, but the invert is measured from the bottom of the river to the top of the intake. That's the invert. That's what they're looking for. And they cannot find, and nobody will report to them, the inverts at Morrisburg or Long Sault or Ingleside. So they're left, how low can we draw down Lake St. Lawrence? So that's the first problem that they have. And they're working on that problem, and he's asked me to make some contacts because they really need to know that information as quickly as possible. Now, ships are still struggling, and he gives me the analogy of a toboggan running downhill on a very steep slope. And you all know what it's like if the toboggan starts to go sideways. There's no way to correct it. And the ship captains have explained the same thing. As the velocity of the river stream increases, and they keep their speeds to an absolute minimum, if the ship starts to go sideways in the stream, because the channel is so narrow and the ships are so long, the ship does not have time to correct. So that's why they're being super careful there. There's quite an interesting thing that's been happening. There are over 100,000 people that draw their drinking water supplies from the water intakes on Lake St. Lawrence. And in addition to that, there are another 3,000, I think he tells me, that have their own private lines out into the lake. So they have to be careful about that. Now, their other problem. A 1 centimeter drawdown of Lake Ontario does tend to put water into Lake St. Lawrence. But on the other side of the dam, it creates an 11 centimeter rise on Lake St. Louis, which is the lake between Cornwall and Montreal. Lake St. Louis rises by 11 centimeters and Montreal by 12 to get a 1 centimeter drop in Lake Ontario. They know they have a 6-month window from from the 1st of January to June the 30th to determine when the peak of Lake Ontario is going to be next year. Most of the flows that they can put over the dam are tied to the water levels on Lake Ontario. So as Lake Ontario goes down, the speed of the river goes down. I don't understand the hydraulics, but that's the reality of the situation. Right now they're at 8,800 cubic meters per second. They're looking for opportunities to increase that. But one of the things that he points out to me, if shipping, hypothetically, were to close 1 week early this year, the board could increase the flow by 1,300 cubic meters per second, according to their calculations. 1 week at 1,300 cubic meters per second would draw down Lake Ontario by 1 centimeter. It would increase Lake St. Lawrence. It would draw down Lake St. Lawrence by 80 centimeters.
80?
80. That's why they're worried about the inverts at Morrisburg, Long Sault, and Ingleside. And at Lake St. Louis, the river would rise by 44 centimeters, and at Montreal it would rise by 48 centimeters. So you can see the problems that they're facing. I know that people don't like the idea that it's related to weather events, and I know that there's a lot of controversy around that, but the hard, cold facts are that if you see the precipitation levels in 2017, 2018, 2019, you will understand why Lake Superior, Lake Huron, Lake Michigan, Lake Erie, and Lake Ontario are at the highest levels in recorded history. And all of that water is coming down the same river system. And the river system can only flow it so fast. So that's the issue, and I don't want to belabor it. I know that from my chats with the Secretary, they are working very, very hard to get this situation under control, and not under control, to get the water levels down as fast as they can, but they do not feel that they'll be in any position to feel a sense of relief until probably midway through June. One of the things that he points out to me is that they have 5 rain gauges on the Lake Ontario shoreline. He named to me the points where those rain gauges are located. He said, I've had record levels in 1 or 2 of those rain gauges in the past. But this year, and since 2017, all 5 rain gauges on the Lake Ontario shoreline broke the records established in 2017, and all 5 did it on the same time. All 5 of my rain gauges came up at the same time. The storms are wider spread and heavier water flows, if I can put it that way. So anybody has any questions, and I would urge members of council, if they so are interested, call the Secretary of the Lake Ontario St. Lawrence River Board and have a chat with them. But be prepared for a half an hour, because it is not the McDonald's hamburger solution. You don't get your answer in your hamburger in 5 minutes. It's a long, complicated hydraulic problem. And the helpful thing about it is that the engineer who was so critical of the Lake Ontario St. Lawrence River Board in the past 3 months has now had a meeting of the minds with the board. They were in a 4-hour, 5-hour meeting this morning, and it appears that there has been a real meeting of the minds as to what the real true causes of this situation are, and also a meeting of the minds as to how and why and when they may be able to take advantage of opportunities to continue to lower Lake Ontario so that we go into the spring at about average level. They don't know whether they can get it down to what they call average spring level or not, but that's their goal. And Plan 2014 is out the window as far as they're concerned and as far as the IJC is concerned. And the IJC on Friday afternoon released a direction to the Lake Ontario St. Lawrence Board, telling them that they are free to ignore the Plan 2014 through June the 30th of 2020. So that's my report, much more verbose than yours, and I apologize, you're much better organized than I am. So that's the mayor's report. Looking for a motion to approve the mayor's report, and I think that that is Deputy Mayor Deschamps.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter, that municipal council receives the mayor's report as presented.
Thank you very much. Questions, if any? Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried. And then I'm at item number 15 on the agenda, which is the question period. Got 2 gentlemen in the audience. I'm sure there's going to be questions tonight. Mr. Cleary.
Just wondering, in reference to item 8F on the agenda, is there a way to get more information about a closed meeting after something's been passed? That's like, how does a member of the public find out more information about something that doesn't have much information on it?
Okay, so that's a property matter, and as such, it's a subject of a closed meeting discussion. And I'll just turn to the CAO, and if you like, you can get guidance from the clerk. But at some point, the issue that was described or discussed in the closed meeting becomes a public report, but I don't know at what point that occurs. So I'll turn to the CAO first, and then to the clerk or the deputy clerk.
I'll defer to the clerk.
They're all looking at the clerk.
They are looking at
At what point?
On that particular part.
Yeah.
Through the chair, Mr. Mayor, I can't give you an exact date. There are, as with any property matter, some negotiations that will have to take place, and until such time everything is signed on the dotted line, there's no more further information available than what's in the package tonight.
Right, but I think at some point in the process, after everything is concluded, it becomes public, does it
Yeah,
not?
at some point, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the way we deal with all property matters, and by the way, with all personnel matters, or personal matters as well.
Could you define what a sewer lateral is?
So, well, okay, so I'll describe a sewer lateral this way. In the township, or both Spencerville and Cardinal, there are sewer mains that run from one manhole to the, or not manholes, lift stations, or manholes. There are mains that run from one manhole to the next, to the next, to the sewage treatment plant. The lateral is the pipe that comes off the main and goes to the property line. And then the property owner is responsible for fastening for that lateral and taking it to the house.
Okay.
So the lateral is just the sideways off the main. Any other questions?
Just one point with Councillor John Hunter. The 50 kilometer, it seems to be a long piece of the town. And most towns, it would drop down to a 60 or a 70 and then into a 50. I don't understand why we're at 50 so far out of town. Does it come back to the auction house? Is that the reason why it's so far out? And it's out to Cleary Road is where it starts. It's not even the tracks, it's beyond the tracks.
Yes, and I think when the director did his operational review there, it started with, there were actually two factors, and the first factor was the auction house, that was one factor, but the other factor was a complaint from residents about high speed along that area, and that people were, first of all, speeding up too quickly as they were leaving town. They were at high speed before they got past the built-up section, and those people wanted it moved farther out. And similarly, they had the same complaint about people coming into town. They weren't slowing down fast enough as they came into town. The director obviously found some agreement with their argument, and I know that they put up, at least my understanding is that they put up speed measuring devices and determined that that was the best way to deal with the situation. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going on to item number 16, which is closed session. We have no closed session this evening. Item number 17 is the confirmation bylaw. Councillor Hunter.
Move by myself, second by Deputy Mayor Deschamps. The bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with the resolution be now passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2019-82.
Those in favor of the confirmatory bylaw? Motion is carried. Thank you. And as per our procedural bylaw, that bylaw gets only one reading. And looking for then the motion to adjourn, Councillor Dillabaugh.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Cameron that the Municipality Council does now adjourn at 7:52 p.m.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. We stand adjourned.